folks, Gene Galin here from the Chatham Journal. I got Treiston Burnette. With an E or no E?
With an E.
With an E. So again, there's the Burnett's with an E and the Burnette's without an E. So anyway, he's the Siler City Parks and Recreation Director here in Siler City, and we're in Siler City, and we're going to be talking about middle school football, which, as many of you know, especially the ones that have been there for years, and Bill Hall knows this, he picks on this a lot, is there is no middle school football here in Chatham County.
Yep.
However, you've come up with an idea as to how to help those kids, because why do you want to do what you want to do?
I mean, the biggest thing is when you go from playing football from 12 years old and then you don't play in the 8th grade, that's a whole year you sit out of playing. Now, let's just say you have 10 kids that are going to the 8th grade to play football. Now, out of those 10, if they don't play or don't do anything with the day and age we're in, with social media and all this, these electronics, they're going to lose interest. They're going to sit at the house, and all of a sudden you start getting legs because you get used to not doing anything. Now those 10 kids might turn into 1 or 2. And it's happened over and over again. And me personally, I saw my own development when it was time for me to go to the 8th grade and play Pop Warner football. I got hurt right before the season. I wasn't able to play. So I saw how many people called up to me just for me not having those reps. And then I get to high school, and all of a sudden, all these people I was way better than, they caught up to me. And so I know the importance of middle school football just from a structure standpoint. And just when you have kids just floating around in the school who would normally be playing football, be playing a sport without an extra coach or a mentor, they can go in any direction, and it's just not good.
I've been shooting sports a long time, and I have found that kids who participate in sports or extracurricular activities do better in school and then do better in life. Is that what you have found in all the stuff that you've been doing?
I mean, just like for me, for instance, if I wouldn't have played sports, I didn't have the, what's the word I'm looking for? Just my own perseverance of just doing my schoolwork the way I should do it, turning stuff in on time. I needed that extra push from somebody outside, and even from coaching in college, I see kids who didn't play sports, who didn't play sports versus who did play sports, and those kids that didn't have a coach, now you don't have a coach, you don't have a mentor, you don't have a life coach, you don't have somebody that's going to be checking on you periodically to make sure you're okay if you need therapy. You just lose out on a whole lot of different things from a structure standpoint when you don't have a coach. And now you're on a team. If the expectation is we're going to have a 3.0, you have to strive for that 3.0, so you're going to always get pushed by someone outside. It'll help you perform better.
Let me ask you this. Have you run, and I know I've seen the situations where you've got a single parent, especially a single mom, and when you're talking especially with football, it's mostly male coaches.
Yes.
Have you seen that as a big difference on a young person's life?
Yes. A lot of times parents will tell us, oh, I don't want my kid to play football, he might get hurt. People need to stop looking at it like from that light versus sometimes there's a certain man your kid needs to be around. Because if you cut yourself off from certain sports, one, kids might not know what they like until they try it. And then maybe they had a bad experience. And then they can add into it too. But what did you get out of it?
Right.
All right. So the male mentorship is huge. If it wasn't for the men in Siler City when I was coming through the coach, I was lucky. I had some of my parents to help coach. You know what I mean? But other than that, the Willie Snipes of the world, Don Dones, guys in the neighborhood. If it wasn't for them, they really pushed me over the top because I didn't want to make them look bad. You know what I mean? Because they showed me so much love, especially Willie Snipes. Every time I saw him, he showed me so much love and told me how proud of me he was. And he never knew, I needed to hear that right then because I might have been dumped somewhere, mad at myself because of how bad I might have played. You know what I mean? And so just having that positive male figure in your life, it changes. It changes the game.
What's the most important thing you learned from it?
Always remember who you represent. He calls me my grandfather's name every time he sees me. He calls me Reverend Strickland. And
so your granddaddy was a preacher?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And it balances me back out. You know what I mean? It brings all my family values back. It just reminds me of where I come from. You know what I mean? And just understanding that, yeah, the name on the front of the jersey, I'm a Jet, that's big, but your name that you got on the back of your jersey, that's where you come from, and that's who you represent.
So did your granddaddy get to see you play?
As a kid, yes. He passed away my sophomore year in high school. Yeah.
Was he proud to see you play out there?
Yes.
Let me ask you this question. It wasn't on one of my
Okay.
list of questions, but you brought it up. So you know, your faith in your granddaddy being a preacher. One of the things I see when I shoot events, and you don't see this too much on television, is there's a lot of players that will take a knee and say a prayer before a game.
Mm-hmm.
How important has your belief in God been in your development and in helping out the younger players?
I mean, once you start coaching at a high level, you start realizing that things get restricted. You know what I mean? My personal beliefs might be my personal beliefs, but somebody else's household, once you hit that level, you have kids coming from all different demographics. So this kid might be a Christian, this kid might be a Muslim, this kid, you know what I mean? So
Right.
Once you hit that high level, it's all about the development of a human being. You know what I mean? When you get by yourself and what you got to lean on the most, when it's time for you to pray or however you might handle it, it can get you through some stuff. But the biggest thing for me is like human interaction and being non-judgmental and being an open book for everybody. I'm not perfect by any means. Everybody has stuff they struggle with, you know what I mean? But just leaning on your faith and just knowing who you are as a human being will take you much further than anything else will.
All right, I gotta ask you this question. You
Yeah.
said you're not perfect, and your mama got mad at you. Did she use your first name, middle name, and last name?
She used a lot of them. So that's a whole different story. But
We don't have to go there. I just
But my mother always told me to make sure I didn't make us look bad. You know what I mean? Like, you only got one chance for a first impression. And even if you do mess up, nobody's perfect. You know what I mean? Nobody's perfect. So on one hand, I knew the expectations of how I was supposed to act out in the world. But then on the other hand, she always kept it real as far as, look, you're a human being, you're gonna mess up. You know what I mean? But if you don't learn from your mistakes, then you're doing it to yourself.
All right. You're doing this because you feel that there's a need, and you mentioned your own personal experience where you got injured. Now, you were a multi-sport athlete back in high school. You played football and baseball, didn't you?
Yeah.
And then you moved into college athletics. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. What opportunities did you have at that age that you don't believe kids in Chatham County have this today, or is it the opportunities that are out there, you're just trying to get them more involved?
The biggest thing is when you don't leave a small town and see what's outside, all you have is what you know from a small town. And I knew as a kid that from the time Kenneth McPherson was the Parks and Rec director, I knew I wanted to go off and learn as much as I could and then bring it back to the city. You know what I mean? Because kids are starving for information. So one thing that we already did, we used to have an all-star league with West Chatham. So when I first got back, that was real big on my to-do list, was to get back in West Chatham, because kids that weren't in the West Chatham league couldn't get on the all-star team. And this past year we had 6 kids from my baseball and softball team. So 2 from softball, 4 from baseball to make the all-star league. And I knew how big that was for me as a kid in the summertime, trying to make it to the Little League World Series. And we won states when I was a kid. I was 11. Nat Murray was my coach. You know, him, Art Kennedy, and Harold Henson, Chuck Snipes. And that summer we had, we always look forward to that in the summertime. But getting back into that league was huge, because the biggest discrepancy in Siler City was when I got here was 2 things: the tired of daddy ball, and why do we keep playing all these travel teams? First thing I said was, what is daddy ball? Because no matter what, most of the coaches that coach, their kids are gonna be on the team.
Right.
So how do we control the narrative of some of the stuff that's coming out of our mouth that's not gonna be perceived in a negative fashion, and now somebody else takes that and runs with it? Because, for being honest, a lot of the guys that coach, their kids are usually the best kids on the team. You know, and instead of looking at something in a negative light, let's look at it from the standpoint of, how is your kid already on this level? And what am I doing as a parent? What am I not doing as a parent to get my kid on this same level? Because from an athleticism standpoint, they're neck and neck. So what am I not doing? And that's where the whole travel ball piece came in. We had a whole lot of parents wondering why we playing this team. All this team has a whole lot of travel kids on it. And I'm like, what's the difference between a travel kid and a regular kid? You know, they play all year round, they do all this training. All right, so really what we're saying is the difference is the commitment from the parent to see their child's excellence when it becomes when we're talking about how good they want to be in sports. Because I have 3 boys myself. I'm real hard on my oldest son, my middle son, my third son, he's 4, so he's just watching and just doing everything on his own.
What are you gonna get tough on him? What are you gonna get tough on that 4-year-old?
I don't have to because he's learning from seeing.
Okay.
You know what I mean? My oldest son, the father I am now is totally different than the father I was 10 years ago. You know what I mean? So that's part of me learning, and it comes out of his mouth that he wants to be the best, or he wants to be good enough to go. So, all right, this is what you want, I'm gonna have to show you.
Well, I was going to say, did you get that? You're talking about parents who say, why are we playing all the travel leagues? And it sounds like, again, in your college experiences, we'll get to that a little bit later on. And if you talk to any of the coaches in high school that have been successful, they enjoy playing those tougher teams.
You want to play the best people, period.
Because even if you lose, it's a learning experience.
Yes. And that was not even in the majority of the population's brains.
Okay.
It was more so worried about my son lose, why we playing this team. So now what they didn't understand was now, whenever I put a baseball team together, in my head, you're saying this, but what you got to understand is, Nick Saban said something like, high achieving people can't stand mediocre mindset people. It's the same thing. How can I put you on a team full of parents whose expectations are through the roof because their kids want to be the best, and then you just upset about us playing a talented team? Where's the middle ground? So now when I make a team, I can't put your kids on this team right now because your expectations, you won't be able to handle these parents.
Right.
Because when little Johnny makes a mistake on team B, oh, it's okay. The expectations on team A, come on, you're better than that. And it's hard for parents to understand that if they can't even fathom where it's coming from. And so that's been the biggest thing is changing the mindset of the parents. And like if your kid wants to be good, it's steps you got to take for it to take place. And not having enough time can't be an excuse because we have YouTube. You can go to YouTube University and learn any and everything. And for the amount of time kids on these pads and this and that, I wish I could have had everything at my disposal when I was a kid because it eliminated all the injuries I had. I would have known how to lift the right way. I would know how to eat properly. Whatever position I'm playing, I can type me in the search menu, and I can put Alabama's linebacker drills. Their whole individual drill tape is right here. So parents just not taking advantage of the resources we have. They're using too much of the pads and electronics as babysitters. And so that's the biggest thing I've fought since I've been here.
So you feel that's an important tool as to how you use it, not just, it's not a babysitting tool, it's a learning tool.
It's a learning tool.
How long have you been quoting Nick Saban? The reason I ask that is because Coach Forbes, who coaches the UNC baseball team, is actually a Chatham County resident, originally from Lee County. He, during the World Series over in Omaha, he actually quoted Saban a few times. So what are the lessons you picked up from him, or what other coaches do you quote, or kind of their ideas stick with you?
That one just kind of hit me. I normally don't quote people, but I didn't want to say something, and then some coaches out here say, "Oh, he stole that from," but it just aligned perfectly. But if you're looking at a standard structure and accountability standpoint, the first person you normally think about is Nick Saban because it's a standard. He was at Alabama. From a structure standpoint, these are the rules. This is the code. We're not skipping any steps. It is what it is. Your shirt's supposed to be tucked in, tuck it in. Everybody's wearing white socks, put on white socks. And then the whole accountability piece is huge. You know what I mean? So like, everything is fair, but it's not equal. But there's some form of punishment that's going to take place for what you're doing. And that's one of the biggest things I learned from coaching college football. That's from my second coach I coached for, Cleve Adams. He made me realize that there's no way to dodge somebody's mistakes during the week if you're still going to reward them from playing. That's the biggest lesson I learned from him. And what I did as a coach, whatever his rules were, these were his non-negotiables. And then I added my part into it from a defense standpoint. So your attitude, did you hustle? Did you align properly? Blah, 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 blah. And then how are you in the community? Do you get plus or minus for this? And at the end, it was attitude again. So I had these 8 categories.
So that was your list for your defensive players, because
Period.
that's what you were coaching.
That's what we was going by. And this is like non-negotiable. Something as far as I say something, you suck your teeth. Oh, I'm going to that little board that's on my computer, and say you're a starter, you get 60 plays. Every time you got a minus on any of those, that's 5 plays. And then if you got a backup, now I'm doing this all week, and now when it's time for the game to come, I know how to structure my reps, because one thing about football and sports is when it's crunch time and you have somebody in that game that's not supposed to be in the game, or the ball is going to find them. And they're not going to be successful because they don't deserve to make this play. Now, is there some outliers here and there? Yeah, that's called getting lucky. But other than that, if you don't deserve it, we can't reward you for it, because that's giving you a false sense of reality in the world, because the world doesn't work like that.
When did you buy into the SSA structure? Was that once you got to college, or did you start picking that up when you were still at JM?
Which part?
The thing about the whole standards, structure, and accountability.
That's something that we all came. Everywhere you go, it'll be an acronym for something. Every coach will have something. This will be our theme for the weekend. For spring ball. It could be something simple, hustle. As I started coaching, you start taking bits and pieces from here and there, and then the best coaches in the world steal stuff from each other. And that's what all business is, you know what I mean? And anytime you get some free information, I'd rather get free information and not have to make a mistake that you've already made, you know what I mean? And I was on the internet all summer long, every single day, and I'm just learning about how things work, how the military gets people to be on the same page, you know what I mean? Because we had a lot of success at Guilford when I was Denver coach with Savage. When I got with Cleve Adams, it was the worst defense in the nation. And after my last season there, they had the best record in school history, you know what I mean?